Okay, so let's get started. Our first transaction looks like it is for Chase Bank. So let's type in Chase Bank. And we see it's for $15. This is really typical of an ACH or a wire fee from some banks. And this is why we have a bank fee and processor fees um, category. So we're going to go ahead and hit add there. You see this is a Chase payment for 228.16. This is a number that's obviously not just like a flat fee. So let's go to our documents and see if we can find anything. And if you remember, we took out that loan. And that's a it looks like it's a 3-year repayment with 228.16 per month. So we're going to learn how to do this transaction at the end of this video because I want to kind of go through the rest of it first, and then we can come back to this. So we're going to leave this for now. The Chase payment to landlord on the first, so they're paying rent. Also utilities company, so we're going to look this up. And if you don't have any of these vendors already in, obviously add them. And you can name them how you feel. So here I named it Austin Utilities, but you can put the co in if you'd like. And let's say I kind of just blazed through that and didn't realize what exactly I had just categorized it as because it had suggested something rather than me giving it something. So let's just double check to make sure it put it in the right category that I wanted it to. Western utilities. Okay, so see here, I accidentally put it to billable expense income. So I'm going to hit undo. Or you can edit it from here, but I like undoing it so that you have like the peace of mind that you did it properly. So Austin utilities. I'm going to make sure I put it under utilities there. And I'm going to put it under water and electricity. Central insurance, you'll see that it's suggesting a match here, and this is exactly what I need it to be. So I'll add my vendor. I can double check that it's under the right parent account, and then I can hit add. Office Depot. It's going to be some office supplies here. And remember, if you're having a little bit of trouble figuring out, you know, what's in this whole drop down list of possible accounts, you can always go back and look at our chart here on this slide 7 to be able to kind of remember what are your options if you want to see it visually. So IKEA, we're going to also book this to office supplies. And this is because it's a small amount. If it's not over like $1,000, then you're probably spending it on pretty small things. If you want to get the receipt and really understand what it is, then we'll learn how to split that payment with this Chase payment and the loan payment. You can get a little more granular with it, but for the purposes of this course, we're going to keep it simple, and most of our transactions are going to be single category. So IKEA is going to be office supplies here. We have something called voltage coffee. So let's do a Google search of what voltage coffee is. They are a specialty coffee roaster. So we're going to put in voltage coffee. Coffee beans and supply costs. Okay, so here's one of the situations where either we need the receipts to know what these are, or if you're the owner doing your own books and oh, these 3 Amazon are for like random office supplies or things that you needed, and this 212 was for kitchen supplies that you were buying for your cafe, we can do a batch categorization here where we select all three, hit edit, expense, Amazon, and these are office supplies. So we're going to select office supplies and we're going to apply an accept on those three. Then on this one, because we know this is small kitchen tools and supplies, we can set it out as small kitchen tools and supplies. Home Depot is going to generally be for repairs and maintenance. So let's say, they just opened. So we're going to want to add some paint and do some renovations quickly to the areas that they think is worthwhile, or adding some shelves into the side of the area. So we're just going to put this in repairs and maintenance. Again, we have voltage coffee, Home Depot again. And again, I'm very used to how QuickBooks looks, so always double check if you need to. Amazon, office supplies looks good to me. IKEA, office supplies. And remember, you're probably not going to see a lot of these, IKEA and things like that as you keep going through the months, because when we're first getting set up, let's say for the first week or two, we're just running around and getting what we need and realizing we need something, right? So HEB, if you don't know what HEB is one of the greatest grocery stores in the United States. And so now that we know it's a grocery store, I'm going to say HEB, say grocery, dairy and grocery cost. We have Office Depot here again. Okay, so Office Depot, office supplies, Target, let's say the owner or you, the owner, said, I know I was buying some kitchen things, so I'm going to put them in kitchen tools and supplies. Whole Foods, everybody knows what that is. And since this is a grocery store, we're also gonna put it in dairy and grocery cost. A Smart, again, if you don't know what it is, we can Google it real quick. It's a restaurant supply. So these are gonna be small kitchen tools and supplies. Central Market, it's starting to categorize them correctly for us, but for some reason, it's a little more time before it can give us the payee in there as well. We're going to select dairy and grocery for this one. Deep maintenance. Okay, so we have Square, and shows that we're receiving money here. So it looks like the cafe is finally open for business. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up Square. The reason we're going to set it up this way is because these deposits are, each day. It's not per customer. So there's no need to track a lot of this. A lot of this stuff, especially in restaurants, will be tracked in the software that they're using, whether it's, for this example, it would be Square. A lot of restaurants use Toast. The platform that you use is generally going to be tracking a lot of the relevant information you have. So here it's defaulting to its sales account. And remember, we set up a cafe sales, um, this cafe sales account. So we're going to put it in cafe sales and we're going to hit add. So Creature Coffee, looks like this is again a coffee bean supply purchase. Okay, so we're getting to the point where there's a lot of repeating transactions, right? So I want to go over setting up some rules, and rules will be really helpful, especially as we get into the next couple months. And I'll show you why this starts to get less and less daunting, especially for a business that is a clean, keeping their transactions in their own business account, their personal transactions separate. And let me show you how the rules work now. So for rules, what I like to do is I like to set it up completely, right? So HEB, dairy, and grocery costs. I have the vendor and the account correctly set up, and then I click create a rule. And when you name the rule, I like to just name it simply HEB. And what you really want to know is how you're going to be able to find it. So you want to make sure you're not accidentally. So when I set up rules, sometimes I'll set them up super generically, but you have to make sure you don't accidentally just accept every transaction because it has a rule. So we'll go over how to kind of bulk accept rules and just review them real quick and make sure that they're right and put them in. But for now, it looks like everything, because I set it up properly in the original screen before this kind of comes out pre-filled pretty properly. We just need to check the payee and the categories are correct. Sometimes it flips them up on you. We can test it and see how many transactions. It says 77, which is across all of our dates, not just the month that we're in right now, which is great, right? So like it'll really help us get these transactions cleaned up really quickly. So in the rules, there's this checkbox that you have to click before you hit save. So make sure you uncheck that because what it'll do is it'll automatically add it for you and categorize it. Where if you're really confident that the description, the rules that you've set up are really strong and match exactly what you have, because you can even set up, it has to be an exact amount. So we could actually set up a rule for the loan payments in the future. But for now, we really just want to stick to description and leaving this auto add unchecked so that we can really review everything properly before we put it in. Let's hit save and go back to our transactions. If you want to edit a rule, you can go to the rules and you can see the rule name that you've set and you can click edit and we'll get back to that exact same rule here. So now you'll see that, and let me real quick, since we left that, we need to reset our date range. You'll see that we have a rule that's set up and it looks like the payee isn't set, but with the rule, it is setting it. It's just a visual glitch. So what you can do is go ahead and in the month that we have, go ahead and select the rest of the HEBs that exist, right? And we can hit accept since they're all rules now. And we know that we looked at each one. We know that they are HEB in the description that's coming from the bank. And if it's the rule, it's going to set the payee for us and get it squared away. Speaking of squared away, we're going to square away square. We're going to set up cafe sales here because these square deposits will be very regular and we want to be able to really knock these out as they come in. Description contains square. And test the rule. We know everything's set up here correctly. We're going to make sure auto add is not selected. And you can see this is a bulk of the transactions because, after every single day, we'll get a deposit of sales unless it's a Sunday. Perfect. We have a lot more of these rules that we can now just quickly make sure that they're square and accept these. Go ahead and accept. All right, so the next one is Waterfall Gourmet Beverage. So if we look this up, you can see distributed gourmet coffee supplies, products, and equipment. And so we're going to put this into Waterfall. So Waterfall does gourmet coffee supplies, product, and equipment. And so what I know as an owner, or if you were to ask the owner what it was for, they would say, "Oh, I'm buying my paper cups from there." So we can put paper, cups, and goods here. And now let's say we know this is going to be a recurring transaction. We can hit create a rule, and you'll see that this description is pretty long that it's trying to pull in, right? It's trying to really match everything. So what we can do is we can just shave it down a little bit. We can shave it down a little bit and make it to where it's just, the core front of it. So we know that this is going to be, just in case there's another thing that ever comes up in waterfall. We can test this rule. Looks like it applies to 52 unreviewed transactions. Make sure it's unchecked. Payee is correct, category is correct, and we're going to hit save. So what we can do is keep going rule one by one and kind of setting up rules for it, or you can set them up like each at a time and then knock them all out as you go, right? Accept those. Amazon, we're going to say is office supplies again. And remember, when you have these types of office supplies, they can be anything from stickers to markers to whatever they might be using in the cafe. A lot of times there are just things that help you move or things that customers like that you give away as freebies that are just worth it because they're so cheap to you as an owner. And let's go ahead and set up a rule for this so we can get these out of the way easier. To test this rule, 67 more transactions. So you can see how as we set up rules, this number becomes a lot less daunting because there's 67 Amazon ruled transactions that'll come up in this number at some point. 57 for the other one, etc. Whole Foods, we know this is dairy and grocery. Save. Figure 8 coffee. It's pretty explanatory, but specialty roasted coffee. So we can go back here, add figure 8 coffee. And supply cost. We can create a rule. And let's say you know this is a one-off. You don't have to create a rule if you know it's a one-off, right? But for me, anything that could be a repeatable, especially when you're doing such a big bulk of transactions like 850, it helps to set some up just to understand where um, either if the rule is going to be worthwhile or if it's not going to be, because you can test the rule and see if it's there. And sometimes just going that extra step really helps you possibly save a lot of time. Repairs and maintenance. And maybe this isn't repairs and maintenance. Maybe this would go under advertising. Again, you don't know unless you ask the owner, right? And so in my case, let's say I just have a constantly leaky something and I'm having to fix it. I didn't get a great lease. And so I'm having to deal with a bunch of little things every now and then. You can create a rule. Home Depot, expenses, repair and maintenance, and save. Target, small kitchen tools and supplies. Create rule. Check your categories, check your payee. And again, if you think these rules don't fit for every single thing, even if they don't fit 100% of them, if they fit 90% of them, sometimes it's worth having them because you can either go back and recategorize something that you got a receipt for and it wasn't the normal thing that it usually is, or you can review all of these kind of and just have these rules set up to like quickly go because you can always come in and set this to be office supplies if it really was office supplies. But usually, if they're going to be small kitchen tools supplies, you can leave the rule like that and it'll keep the rule as if it's small kitchen tools and supplies. So we're coming up to the end and we have a few of the last things that we need to consider. Let's accept these rules. We have another Chase Bank fee, looks like. Bank and processor fees. I'm going to hit add here. And so these are the three payments that we're going to look at that are a little bit first time for us. Easy Ice, if we look it up, they're actually commercial ice machine rentals. So this is an equipment rental. So Easy Ice, especially if this is a rental, we know that sorry, I can't speak and type. We know that it's going to be a recurring transaction almost every single month because we're renting this equipment, right? So we can test this rule and see how many exist. And yeah, it looks like there's one for every single month. So we're gonna hit save and we have a rule for the equipment rental. And this is a transfer of $5,000. Now, let's say you're the owner and but the owner is paying themselves, right? For the time that they're spending in the cafe, running the business and doing everything that's needed. Let's say that the owner has decided they're going to have to pay themselves $5,000 a month to be able to pay all their bills personally in life. And so that's the goal. The business should at least produce 5,000 a month and they have enough cash in the account to pay themselves 5,000 at the end of this month. So we're going to go ahead and categorize this, and the owner is you, or whoever you've chosen the name for. And this is where we talked earlier about. So this is where we talked earlier about the difference between distributions and payroll wages paid. This is payroll wages paid because the you as an owner are spending time setting this up, spending time at the cafe, and really doing everything. So your 5,000 a month is for all the hours that you've spent in the business and paying yourself a fair wage to be there. So we're going to hit add. And the last thing we're going to go over is this Chase loan payment. Again, so this Chase loan payment, if we go back to the drive, we're going to see that the payment amount is 228.16, and it's split into interest and it's split into principal, right? So if we go here, if it's split into interest and principal, again, we're picking Chase Bank because they're the person that gave us the loan. We pick interest expense. It's not the full 228, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to split. We're going to make sure that the paid to is still at Chase Bank. We're going to make sure the category is interest expense. Here, I like to put interest payment. And then here, principal payment. So the interest payment, to keep this simple, is going to go into the interest payment box, 3750. So what do we do for the principal payment? We're paying down the loan with the rest of the balance. So we're going to choose the actual loan account, and we're going to put the rest of the balance towards the loan account, which is 190.66. You'll see now this matches up to the original transaction amount. So we know that we did the math, we didn't do any typos here. And so what we can do is apply and accept. What this is doing is it's splitting the transaction of the payment of 228 into its respective categories, which is an interest expense and the principal pay down. We hit apply and accept.